Welcome to Transcendence Talks podcast with your host, licensed professional counselor, Kristy Crabtree. Join us as we build the bridge between psychology and spirituality and discuss psychology for the soul.
Hey everybody, welcome to Transcendence Talks podcast. I am here with my friend and special guest, Teresa Ford. She is an empowerment coach for women, and she's a fellow author who I had the privilege of meeting as a castmate on the TV show Writer's Island that we recently filmed. So welcome, Teresa.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here with you and just reconnect after being on the island together. We learned so much, bonded. It was such a great experience.
It truly, truly was. And I treasure the conversations that you and I had, mostly off camera, like behind closed doors, the more intimate experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And there was such a wisdom that you shared with me that had a big impact on me. And so I'm really excited to have you on today, just so we can share your message far and wide and some of that wisdom that you had to share.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I just felt like the second we started talking, we had so many foundational principles that were the same. And yeah, and what we do in the world is very similar too. Yeah, this will be fun.
Yeah, and I know you have an upcoming webinar, an upcoming masterclass that I want to share about, because you're talking about something that I think as women we all struggle with, which is boundaries. And obviously as a psychotherapist, that's something I love talking about, because attachment wounds are weird. And what I've noticed is when we have an attachment wound, then we do what we need to do to survive as a child. We have to bend our will so that we can stay safe in our family of origin, and we learn to read people, and we learn to read the room, and we know what to do to not upset our parent. But in doing that, we betray ourselves as adults, because we carry these patterns into adulthood. And so I've noticed in my practice that women especially struggle with setting boundaries, because fundamentally in our bodies, setting a boundary feels unsafe, because it's the exact opposite thing that we had to do as children to survive our trauma.
Right.
And so I'm so excited that you're talking about this, because it's probably one of those things that you can incorporate into your life that will change your life and the quality of how you feel internally very quickly. But it's almost like we need some hand-holding and navigation, because we almost disintegrate a little bit in that process, because it creates those waves, it creates a ripple. And sometimes it triggers the deepest wounds, which is, am I unlovable? Should I feel shame or guilt about this?
Right.
And so I would love to hear your philosophy about self-empowerment and boundaries.
Okay. I appreciate that so much. This is my favorite topic. I really can't ever stop talking about it, because I am a product of emotionally immature parents, right? They were emotionally immature, and when they were really disintegrated, they were emotionally unavailable. And so children that don't get nurtured in their childhood, when their nervous system is still developing and their little brains are really underdeveloped, we develop these stories and perceptions about who we are, and that possibly we're the reason our parents are unhappy, right? And so when we have parents that are parentifying us, they're using us as their emotional support system instead of the other way around, the way it ought to be. You grow up with these immature views of yourself. Your self-worth is not fully developed. Your understanding of what your value is, you're only valuable if you give up your wants and needs for what they need you to be. And I struggled for so many years, being an immature parent myself, because I didn't receive that nurturing either that my parents didn't receive in their childhood.
Absolutely.
So historically, it's come down the line. And when it gets to you, you have choices. It can either stay this way, or you can mature and grow through it, right? And that's what I chose to do. So I really speak more to those women who understand that they are pattern breakers, that they don't want to repeat the patterns, that they're ready to do something else. And so I have created this entire journey for women. It's called the Empowered Woman's Journey, because when we were children, we were disempowered. And so taking your power back is the most important thing you could ever do, because it changes the trajectory of your family history. And it's the legacy you prefer to leave. I have healed and worked my way through the hardest stuff, the emotional immaturity, the lack of nurturing. And in my childhood, I call it the profound lack of love, because my parents were in fear constantly. And so they were teaching us how to move through life based on fearful beliefs and perceptions of what could be dangerous, like what other people think of you. Their opinions are more important than your opinion of yourself, right? Those kinds of things give you these scarcity issues as you grow up.
Absolutely.
And so overcoming that and moving yourself into a place of empowerment and abundance, it's not that easy, because if it was, everybody would do it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's so possible when you allow yourself to take that journey forward, just one thought, one action, one belief system at a time. And it's not that painful to do either, because you're not trying to hurry your nervous system into a place of learning to feel safe in a place that it never could be as a child, right?
So let me ask you this. What was your catalyst or your maybe aha moment that made you realize in your life something needs to shift and it starts with me?
Well, I was 4 kids deep, and I found myself upset, frustrated, and irritated every single day. And I was like, I sound like my mom. And, we're all like, I'm never going to do it like my mom did it. And I'm like, how's that going for you? Because it wasn't going well. And so I really thought long and hard, is like, okay, how I have one opportunity to do this differently. Like, you get to raise your family one time, right? And there were a lot of things happening in my life that I didn't see coming, that wasn't part of the dream of getting married and having children, So I took it upon myself as like, I can't change other people, but I can change me. And I read a promise once that said, if you will be in the scriptures every day, you'll have more peace, more harmony, more respect in your home and for each other. I was like, well, okay, that's for me. Let's go.
Yeah.
And so I hadn't read the scriptures up until then, because I didn't think I was smart enough. I was brought up to believe that I wasn't smart enough to read the language of the scriptures. So I was like, well, how bad could it be? Let's try it. I mean, on the scale of risk taking, I'm a 99. So I was like, how bad could it be?
Me too, sister.
So I opened up the scriptures. I had my baby was nursing at 4 a.m. So I just opened up the scriptures, and it wasn't the words that I was reading. It was the fact that I was putting myself in a place to receive personal revelation, the inspiration on how to set values in my family home, and how to see my kids in a different light, and how to appreciate that they're just being kids, because in the household I grew up in, the favorite way for my mom to experience me was silent and invisible. There was actually no sign that there were children that lived there. No sign. So when I had kids, I was like, what are these messes? What is happening? Like, how come my house looks like a bomb went off? And I didn't know how to fix it. But the thing was, just simply reading the scriptures, just being in a space where I was looking for inspiration. It was given to me to know they're just being kids. This is normal. And then also I was inspired to go search for other mentors. So having other mentors in my life that were great mothers, and they had nurturing in their lives. And then I was like, so how are you doing this? And the one thing that moved the needle faster than anything else when I was trying to be this pattern breaker and do it different.
Yeah.
Humor. Like, don't take it so seriously, enjoy the ride. The kids are cute. They're healthy. We're just spending time together, and the messes always get cleaned up. Like, but that was the beginning of the pattern breaking.
Gosh. And I love that you point to humor too, because I feel like as children, when we're not allowed to be children, I think that's one of the first things that we lose the capacity for is humor and play.
Yeah.
And it's like it's not a priority in those value systems. And so I think it's really beautiful that you were able to engage with your kids and yourself in that way and have that awareness for your family.
It really changed the trajectory of how I mothered from that point forward. And and then we figured it out as the kids grew up and everything, and at one point I was just, I was a stay-at-home mom for 15 years, but then at one point, 2008 hit, my husband lost his job, and I had to go put on my big girl pants and go get a job without a resume. Literally, I had to fake a resume and pull jobs from high school, stick it on the resume and wave it at somebody, hoping it was somebody would hire me to do something that was interesting and that I wouldn't bore my life away in some back office filing papers, And that is what happened. It's how I landed in fitness, and I learned that I had gifts and talents for working with people in functional fitness ways that I had no idea before. So it's funny how our life unfolds and we learn so much more about ourselves through the trials and the difficult times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a perspective shift too. You said something that I thought was really important, which is we take our power back.
Mm.
And when I hear about somebody who has taken their power back, what I first think about is we're not a victim. If we're empowered, that's almost to me the opposite of that victim energy. And what I've noticed is people who feel victimized by life, resentful all over the place, they haven't taken their power back. And when we have the perspective that we're a victim to life and not somehow co creating with life or with the divine, it's easy to victim posture, but that also keeps us stuck. And I think that's such a fundamental shift of, whoa, you know what? There are some hard circumstances, but if I can allow those difficult circumstances to act as a refiner's fire for me, to burn off those edges that no longer serve me, and to step deeper into my purpose, that doesn't mitigate the fact that it's hard, but it empowers us versus allowing us to feel more like a victim and staying stuck.
Absolutely. Just an example of that, when I realized that I had to go get a job or we were going to be homeless, I was mad at God. I was just like, I was playing the victim to a certain degree. It's like, well, okay, I thought my place was in the home and I wanted to raise my kids and be a full-time mom. And for some reason, I am the only one going out actively searching for a job. So when I got in the car with my fake resume, I started to drive out the driveway and I was like, I don't know where this job is. This is pre-internet, right? There was no internet to go look for a job. I was like,
Yeah.
if you want me to go get a job outside the house, you're going to show me where it is. I was just that bold to say, to speak to God that way. I was a little, had attitude with him, and,
Sure.
and he just a thought in the back of my head was like, go check out the gym at the end of the street. And when I got there, the job was actually taking care of kids in the daycare. I was like, wait a minute. You mean I'm going to go take care of other people's kids and not my own? What?
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks later, a job came open in the sales department at the front desk. And then I got to watch the trainers come and go. And then I would realize that they were boring their clients on the treadmill and like, what are we doing? This is awful. And their clients never really changed. And it was kind of at that moment that I realized, if we're not having fun, what are we doing?
Yeah.
That's when I was like, well, I'll become a trainer and we'll go have fun. And I learned functional fitness, but I mean, kind of trusting the process of becoming. And I had to move through victimhood. Poor me, I have to go get a job, to realizing it was a gift. God was trying to show me what else is possible for my life, And even though I was turning the thoughts that I was thinking into a meaning that was not good, I was going to have to leave my children. The meaning shifted for me over, the course of a year, where I was like, okay, he's trying to show me I have other gifts to put into the world and other people to impact, to help them see their own potential and rise to the occasion, no matter what they've been through. If I hadn't had that experience, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you, having been on a TV show to write a book,
Right.
None of that would have happened. I would still be, because I was very shy. I was like in my little world of, home, church, grocery store. That was it. I had no social life. And God's like, you can't play small forever. You got to get out there and do something with yourself, And I realized that it just felt so good to offer the gifts that I've been given, because if I could run and play and have fun with my kids, I could run and play and have fun with adults, because we're all just big kids.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. So, okay, going back again to something else that you said, there was a time when you were feeling resentment all over the place. And what I have noticed in my life, it's something I teach my clients as well, is usually resentment at other people is the very first red flag that maybe we don't have the appropriate boundaries that we need in place, because it's never about the other person. It always somehow boils down to, what are we not saying? Where are we not asking for a need to get met? Where are we not advocating for ourselves? And I'm wondering if you could just speak more to that.
Yeah, I love that, because when you start to take emotional responsibility for what's yours, you're no longer worried about what other people are doing, because you can't change them. You have no control over other people, but you you can look in the mirror, and whatever you are pointing your finger at, I hate that situation or I don't like that person, look in the mirror. Whatever, you know how sometimes like you have this experience that just drives you nuts and you just replay it in your head after the fact, and you're just kind of going in circles, having that conversation, what they said, what you should have said, what you really wanted to say, all of that. If you take what you really wanted to say to them that has to do with your irritation or directing your blame at them, just look in front of the mirror and then say it to you. Because 100% it's a reflection, even a projection of what it's the thing you see in them that is not yet healed in you.
Absolutely.
Right. And so you can look in the mirror and you're like, you're driving me crazy because, and whatever that because is, you're like, you never protected me. And then you look in the mirror, you're like, you never protected me, because it's our job to help the little underdeveloped parts of us, our inner self that got left in the past in an unregulated emotional event that happened in our lives. We didn't have anyone to co-regulate with us to help us work through the emotions at the time. And if that didn't happen, I call her little you. And then little you is still suffering back there. She's still afraid of what she can't control. She's really afraid of how it feels to be alone in the world. And so as soon as you can have those conversations in the mirror and do the reflection exercise, then you start to see yourself more clearly, because now as adults, we're the parent.
That's right.
And little you needs your leadership to take her by the hand and remind her you are safe and all is well. Okay? And we do that through nervous system regulation.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I mean, as a therapist, I'm trained in IFS. It's my primary modality, internal family systems. And that's what we do. We work with little you. And, what I found time and time again when we're doing that work with clients is when we fail to set boundaries, little you feels betrayed, not by the parents anymore, but by you, by self-leadership, the part of you that isn't setting the boundaries to protect her. Because you're right, as adults, we now have responsibility for that inner child, and we're still looking externally for somebody else to take care of that child, when really the onus is on us now. And when we fail to set boundaries, we're letting her down at the end of the day. And that, in my opinion, is such a disconnect that we have as adults between us and us, where we lose trust in ourselves. We lose trust in our own divine guidance because we betray ourselves in the name of perceived safety or perceived lovableness or approval all the time. And so I love that you talk about that in your book, I imagine.
Yeah. I'm writing a book called Making Emotional Money. And it's a metaphor for finding the emotional peace and love that was always yours. Like we were born with love and light. That's, I like to describe it as when you came into the world, everybody was just looking at you, cute little chubby blue baby. And it's like, is she gonna breathe? And the second you took a big breath, everybody's like, she's alive. And your value does not ever increase from that moment. What gives you your full measure of your value is that you take a breath, is that you're breathing, you're alive. But when we were little children, we were taught you have to earn our love. You have to earn the praise. You have to earn the validation. And we spend so much time doing that. All of it is self-abandonment.
Absolutely.
Right. And so little you is like, oh, I'm on hold.
Yeah.
I'm still not the priority. I am still back here waiting, because the people pleaser, the one that cares more about other people's opinion than the opinion we have of ourselves, all of that we were conditioned to do to get the praise and the validation. I call it the good girl syndrome. I think that's pretty common, phraseology for that behavior, is like, I will be what you need me to be.
Yeah.
And even if it means you're going without your needs. And then we find ourselves sitting in contrast, where it's like, I gave up what I wanted to go help this person. And when I asked this person to help me, they were too busy. And then all of a sudden we're like, well, we feel this emotion building, like that's so unfair, that's so out of balance. But if you do the work in the mirror, you're like, you're never there for me. Oh, haha, there we are. Now I can hear it, because the parent in me, the inner child, saying you're never there for me, because it's the inner child that's upset.
Of course. Yes, it's not us.
It's always the inner child.
It's always the inner child. It is so, or a part that's protecting
Mhm.
that inner child.
Mhm.
But it is so incredibly fascinating because, yes, we do get triggered. We do get activated in the present now moment.
Mhm.
But you can always walk that now moment back to memory after memory after memory of things that have just fueled and reinforced the big emotion that's erupting in this now
Yeah.
moment. And I think if we, it's like connecting these dots, or and then being able to get a really clear picture of actually what's happening in hindsight, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this because when you become so aware of the emotions welling up, it
Mhm.
was a thought first. It
Mhm.
triggered your nervous system back here at your brainstem. That sent out a chemical soup in your body that's
Mhm.
saying, I am safe or I am not safe to any varying degrees. I'm really safe. I'm kind of safe. I'm sort of safe. I'm just safe, right? And to, I'm not really safe. This feels weird. And to, no, this is not a good situation to run, hide, and our nervous system is constantly sifting and sorting through the vast archives of our past lives.
Mhm.
Our nervous system knows nothing of the future. It knows nothing out there. It only has a felt sense of anything that has been experienced in the past. So it's constantly going through the archives. Is this safe or not safe? And if there is something happening in our lives right now, there's a hint, a sense, or a flavoring from the past that resembles, not exact, but it resembles something in the now. We become hyper aware of those emotions that are coming up. That puts us in the driver's seat. We can completely take the time to go understand where those emotions are coming from, what the thing is that makes us feel unsafe, and we can rework it, and it rewires our brain, our belief system, our thought processes, and we can move into the future and expand into this person that finally exit the roundabout of all the trauma loops we've ever had.
Absolutely. And they are loops. They are absolutely a loop. And it seems that we will revisit these patterns that we grew up with again and again and again until we meet them at deeper and deeper levels to finally kind of exercise or clear them from the body,
Yeah.
which is so interesting because you can almost track them throughout the lifespan. The loop, like I like that you call it, the good girl syndrome, the people pleaser, and you can really work that all the way back and find you'll keep meeting those parts of yourself until you have effectively resolved them. And I love that you point to the cycle breaker because that's really what you are. I mean, when a person's willing to do this work, I believe that they're not just clearing their own nervous system, they're doing that work for their children, and they're also doing it for their ancestors who maybe couldn't do that work because culturally it wasn't safe, or the time just wasn't right in their life. It's like they maybe started or wanted or had a desire, but they, for whatever reason, they couldn't do that work. So there's a cycle of completion that's ancestral in this work as well.
Right. And I think it's important to emphasize that you are not stuck. You're not stuck forever. You're just doing what you know how to do. That's all.
Yeah.
Until you learn to do something different. Now you're on your way having a different experience in life than what you grew up with and remember in your body. And when we say remember in your body is responding the way it knows how, but you may not have the memories per se, the conscious understanding, or the be able to pinpoint the moment somebody, caused you to feel a certain way. We may not know what that is, but your body is always telling you. And we know that because like anxiety will come up. And I call anxiety yucky gut soup because it's usually more than one negative emotion. So it's,
Yeah.
it's not going to feel really good. And those negative emotions are associated with feeling unsafe, right? And so we can be pattern breakers very easily. It doesn't it's and it's the desire, it's the intent to break patterns. But I'll just give you an example because sometimes they're hard to identify the loops until you know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So the story that my mother always told was, nobody loves me, I'm all alone in the world. She said that just at least once a month, like as a full complete idea. Nobody loves me and I'm all alone in the world. And the greatest suffering of any child is the untapped potential of their parent, right? So her untapped potential was to receive love, to know that she has always been loved, that nobody can actually unlove her. She just has practiced self abandonment for so long that she didn't she started to believe herself so fully and completely that she was unloved and all alone in the world. So fast forward, I left the house at 18 to go out into the wide, wide world and figure out what my life was going to look like. And I took with me the story that no matter how hard I try, I will never be loved, because my mom was so busy being unloved. She didn't have any room to love me.
Sure.
And so I took this story as like, no matter how hard I try, I will never be loved. And I married a really good guy who had emotional trauma from his childhood, that his story was, I can't connect with women. So our relationship was very well managed together when we were managing a family, but it wasn't great as far as connection goes, because love and connection were foreign to us, right? We didn't have that. We were friends, you know?
Sure.
And it's like we went round and round trying to make a connection until I finally realized that he had an avoidant attachment style. I had an anxious attachment style. And when I couldn't get the love I was seeking, and he knew I needed the love, he would back up even more. And then we could never connect. And I didn't even have those words until, 6 or 7 years ago.
Right.
Till more information became available of what that was actually called. And so when we weren't able to connect like that, I was able to understand the story I brought with me found me the perfect match with him and the partnership that I had with him, because it kept the story true. So then I was in this pattern, this loop of staying stuck. And, I was, no matter how hard I tried, I could not get love. And so I exited the loop. And we did end up getting a divorce. But I would have to say that it wasn't just leaving that. I still didn't know about regulating my nervous system. I still was unaware that I had the power within me to feel completely loved, and that I didn't need to depend on somebody else to do that for me.
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, is they're like, I just want someone to love me, or I just want to find love, thinking finding love meant somebody else was going to love you so you don't have to.
That's right. It starts within, right? Because it's our internal realities that ultimately get projected outward and reflected back to us. So it starts by loving ourselves and knowing that we're worthy and lovable. And then eventually those relationships come to us because that's what we're giving.
We become the magnet to it.
We're magnet. Yes, we get magnetized to those things.
Yeah, we
but
are
the attractor. The attractor is the underlying most deeply held belief. So if your most deeply held belief is I'm not lovable, of course you're going to be a magnet for a man who doesn't know how to give love and doesn't know how to connect with himself or you. And then once that attractor, the most deeply held belief changes, our attraction pattern changes. But how? Let's talk about the how. Because we recognize it now. Okay, I must have a deeply held belief that I'm not lovable. How do I start to love myself and change what is magnetized to me in my life?
Yeah, well, to start with, you have to be okay not being right about your belief system. So one of the needs of the ego is to be right. So if you're like, I mean, my mom was like stellar on that. She wanted to be so right about how unlovable she was, that she was never going to hear anything different. She would never receive love from her children. She would never receive love from her marriage, because she needed to be right. She was like, nope, if my dad couldn't love me and my mom couldn't love me, then I am unlovable. And she stuck so close to the family value system that she was not loved. And they showed her every day she was not loved. So she had to be right about that, because she didn't want to leave the family value system.
Let's go a little deeper into that before we move on, because as therapists, we would call that secondary gain. There's a secondary gain in being right or sticking with the family narrative, because being wrong or deviating from that could have severe emotional consequences, right? And secondary gain comes in a lot of forms, but it sounds like you've really identified that with your mom, that the secondary gain is I can't betray these family values because I am clinging to maybe the hope or the possibility that if I just cling hard enough, maybe I'll be lovable or accepted or something.
Yeah, it's the antithesis for true connection. She was like, I will belong to the parents that could never receive me if I agree with them vehemently about the falsehood I am unlovable.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see that goes dark and deep, because it couldn't be further from the truth. And I like to describe truth as light and love. But like to me, they're synonymous in this instance because true truth, the real truth, makes you feel good.
Yes.
And so that couldn't possibly be true because she would never tell us you are so unlovable, but she would tell us she was. It's like, how could that be true? If we're
Right.
lovable, you're lovable, right? And so I think that's one of the most simple ways to first start to understand, am I living by truth, or am I telling myself a story that is going to get me false connection and belonging to my family? So, right, if you want to say I am so unlovable, how does it land? Do you feel better or worse? Worse, right? But if
Yep.
you're like, I am so lovable, or I can be lovable, you're going to feel the resonance of that lift, right? The heavy sadness will lift.
Yeah.
One of the things that I realized as I was becoming a pattern breaker was at the time of my divorce, I had made a lot of friends where we were living, and not one of them called me to see how I was doing during that time. And I went into victimhood over that. And I was like, I guess nobody cares about me. And when I would have that thought, it was so detrimental to my true self that my heart would actually receive a stabbing pain. And I was like, it was just in one day, I was like, nobody cares about me. Stab. I was like, wait, did I
Yeah.
just do that? I did that. I did that to me. Because it was so far from the truth that nobody cared about me. And maybe they just didn't know what to do. Maybe they didn't know what to say. Maybe they didn't want to butt into family business, right? And I was like, okay, let's try that the other way. I am so cared about. People care. They just have busy lives. No stabbing pain. I was like, okay, let's see if I was wrong the first time. And I went back and I was like, well, nobody loves me. Like, I was like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I'm causing my own suffering by the thoughts that I think about. Right. So if you say you're unlovable, you're right. If you say you're so lovable, you're right. Either way, you're right.
Yep.
But one's going to feel good and one's going to feel bad. And that's how you know you're telling yourself a true story or not. And that's where you start.
You are dropping truth bombs, friend. And that, I'm going to be honest, I think for a lot of people, it's a tough pill to swallow, and you're 100% right. And why is it a tough pill to swallow? Because God gave us this gift of free will.
Yeah.
We are made in the image of likeness of God, which means that we're creators in our lives. And if we're taking that victim role, we go, how did I create this? But deep below the level of consciousness are these unconscious beliefs that you're naming so eloquently right now. And those unconscious beliefs act as the magnet to attract in our circumstances. And we literally cannot change them until we bring them from unconscious to conscious and start challenging them. And for some people, that feels radically untrue or unsafe. And some people will say, well, how am I supposed to believe something that my life has experienced has never shown me? Because when we're children, we are victims of circumstance.
Yeah.
I believe, I don't know if I'm curious about this, but I believe on a soul level, we chose those circumstances and chose those parents so that our soul could grow into and develop into the adult that impacts the world in the way that only we can, based on the circumstances that have colored our lives.
Yeah.
You could take it or leave it, but I really believe on a soul level, we're responsible for all of it. And but as children, right, put that aside, we're victims of circumstance. We can't change it, which is why we learn to self-abandon, because I can't run away from my parents. They provide me my necessities.
Yeah.
I certainly can't fight my parents. So all I can do is fawn or freeze or be the good girl and get my needs met that way.
Right.
But when we're adults, we have this, like you said, this radical responsibility to challenge those things and to look at those patterns and then to start to break them and take our power back. So when somebody has a life experience where they say, Teresa, how could that be true if life has never shown me that that's true? Right?
My first answer is you haven't experienced everything yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like maybe it has been crap till now, but that doesn't mean that's all there is. Right.
Yeah.
So I had this really fantastic experience with my dad after he passed. He came to me. I was speaking at his funeral and he came to me. He was on the left side of me. I knew it was him. He didn't have to say, hey, it's Dad. I knew his soul and he knew mine. And he kind of took over my infinite intelligence for a minute and downloaded some information to me. And that information was like, if he was in a body, he would have been doing the happy dance. Like, he was so light, so effortless, so free. And he was letting me know it's all about love. That's all there is. Right. And in this world that we live in, the body is heavy. Well, there's time, gravity, food, sleep, water. Like, we have to take care of all these heavier things. And so we do perceive there are limitations that we have to live by in this world. And especially if you were emotionally neglected as a child, there are less opportunities to feel the wholeness of love that is available to us. So it is our job, 100% is our job, to move through experiences that may not have been fantastic, but they are definitely our greatest teachers. And if we'll look at them that way, then we can start to question and, like you said, challenge the ideas that we were taught about how to move through life, and see which ones are working for us and which ones aren't, which strongly held beliefs, which is just a whole string of thoughts practiced over and over and over, now create our beliefs. If we just look at the beliefs that help us go to higher heights and the ones that don't, we can start to understand that the ones that don't are based in fear, and the ones that do are based in love, right? So we got the positive side of the emotional scale, which is, I refer to that as love. And the negative side of the emotional scale is fear, right? Yeah. So if we're experiencing anything like, doubt, disappointment, frustration, anger, those are just informational pieces of the emotional system. They're helping us to find places that we have not yet set ourselves free yet. So if somebody has had a really rough life and they can't figure out how to have the good life that they want, and they think they're doomed to only have the bad things happen to them, we have to look at the belief systems in which they have adopted and considered true for them. Yeah. And help them climb up out of that darker space into the light. It's not going to happen overnight. We didn't get here overnight, right? It's a process of feeling safe while we feel good, right? Because it was only safe when dark things were happening, bad things, disappointments and frustrations. When those were happening, we learned how to survive. Right. And survival was what was safe. So it wasn't safe experiencing the bad stuff. It's just what's normal now.
Yeah. It's like we're conditioned.
Yeah. It's like, well, this is what I'm comfortable with because it's all I've ever known. And when you get comfortable with the other part of what's available to you through nervous system regulation, because at first your nervous system is going to be like, oh, I don't deserve anything that good. Oh, I don't deserve that kind of love. I don't deserve it, or I can't handle it, or it's so unfamiliar that I got to go back to chaos, right? If chaos is all that you will allow to be normal, you stay there.
That's right.
But if you will allow peace and harmony to enter your life and learn how to make friends with it. Yeah. And I keep referring right here because this is where you can tap on your little self and be like, that's okay. You are safe and all is well. It's one of the somatic exercises to help you learn to every day, every hour, every minute, become present in what's happening right now in your life and learn to be safe there so you can let a little more good in, a little more good, not too much. Like, we're not like, we'll run for the hills if all the good comes in all at once. But of course, we're not going to like eat every meal we've ever wanted to eat all in one sitting, right? We're going to have little meals and choose good for ourselves and, something we prefer every day. We're going to use that need for variety in our lives to make our lives interesting. So it's kind of like choosing food in that, you're going to choose some food and you're going to like some of it and you're not going to like some of it. And you'll do more of the stuff you like and less of the stuff you don't like, right? And you do that with your nervous system, and slowly but surely you get used to the good, the peace, the harmony, and it doesn't seem so foreign or unsafe anymore.
Yeah, let's go deeper into this because I can guarantee that there's people listening to this that say, why would peace and harmony not feel safe? But I'm glad you brought it up and I'm glad you pointed here because I think if we don't have safety in our nervous system or if we don't feel at home and safe in our body, again, it's hard to have that mirrored externally in your reality. And how do we start to fundamentally build those blocks to, like you said, let the good in? Because people are like, I want all the good, but truly they can't hold it, right? If somebody's like, hey, Teresa, you could have $1 million tomorrow, you might be like, who wouldn't want $1 million tomorrow? But at the same time, when you really think about it, well, what does that mean? What do I have to do to earn it? Like, what kind of responsibility does that put on me to actually make or have that kind of money, right? And then we start to doubt and question, how do we develop the capacity for safety in the body, safety in the nervous system, to start manifesting that outer reality?
Yeah, and my answer is going to be super simplistic. Practice, practice, practice. Because, let's say you're learning to play an instrument. You don't get on there and play Mozart today,
No,
right?
no.
I was in fitness for 20 years, so you don't make a full body transformation in a day. I was sitting with a client once, and we were working through the budget she had to spend on personal training and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, so it looks like we found it in your budget, and let's get you started so you can meet the goals you want for your body. She's like, okay. I turned to the computer and I started asking for the details of her personal information. I look back at her and she's got her shirt pulled up over her face and she's crying. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
And she's like, I've never been fit before. I don't know who I would even be if I became fit. I was like, well, therein lies the wisdom of God, because it's not going to happen today, and it's not going to happen next week, and it's not going to happen next month. But a year from now is coming one way or another. And you can be a different person as you expand into the idea that I am a fit person. By doing what fit people do every single day, your body can't help but become fit. It just will. And so when you see fit people out in the world, you're like, well, they had good genes. No, they lived like a fit person until they became the fit person. But that's kind of how we do it with the nervous system. That's how we do it when we expand into the person we've never been before. Is every day we act like we are that person. We regulate our nervous system. We help ourselves feel safe. And then we enter the situation that maybe wasn't safe before. Maybe it's, we got an increase in our job responsibilities. And we're like, now I'm a leader. Now I have to I have more responsibilities and people are going to be looking to me, and who am I even going to be? If you spend some time with little you, who's really afraid of failure and she's really tried hard at perfection, we can embrace that part that is so afraid of being seen if she makes a mistake, and help her feel safe becoming the leader she was born to be, to accept this position and stand in her power in that position, owning the mistakes. There will be mistakes.
Absolutely.
Right? But then she can be at peace with herself, because she's not worried about the perfection anymore as much as she used to be. And she'll get more and more comfortable standing in the discomfort of doing something she'd never done before. And then it becomes comfortable. So we all do this. We all go from incompetent to competent over and over and over in our lives. So why wouldn't we do this in a way that enhances our true gifts and talents that we need to share with the world, right? The two highest needs of the spirit are growth and contribution. So if we can teach ourselves how to grow into this expansive state of being capable and able to receive all the things we've ever wanted in our lives, right? All the good stuff can come in incrementally, because we can't, one shot's too big. Right? We're not going to go from self-doubt to ecstasy. The jump is way too big, right? But if we allow ourselves to do that day after day after day, we decompress before we go in, we decompress when we come out, and we stay in a state of I am safe and all is well. There isn't anything you can't become, right? You just expand naturally without forcing it, without trying to go faster. And sometimes you have to slow down to go fast, right?
Yes.
You slow down, take your time, help yourself feel safe, and then you start to speed up, because you can receive more and more and more, and it doesn't overwhelm your nervous system.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. That is so beautifully said. I think sometimes people don't realize that there's a cost to expansion. I love that example of your a weight loss client who wanted to become fit, because I see that all the time. Sometimes it can be scary to have a fit body, because that means that you might attract more male attention where maybe that hasn't been safe in the past. Or, becoming that leader means your behaviors get put in a fishbowl and people will be watching you. And sometimes we want these things, but we don't recognize what we have to give up, the fear-based belief systems that we have to shed in order to become who we are supposed to be in alignment with our soul's plan or purpose.
Right.
And so you being able to help people identify what is that belief that's keeping you small or stuck is so incredibly empowering when we can start to name and label and have awareness around these things.
Right. And it's a reclamation of who you were to begin with. Like if you have a desire to get fit, it's because there's a fit person living inside, trapped and afraid of what might happen if she became fit. If my example too is becoming extroverted and using my gifts to help other people. I actually went through a physical transformation of my own. I was very overweight and I was going to buy bigger pants because mine were too tight. And I looked in the mirror. I was like, what happened? Where'd she go? I felt light and bright on the inside, and on the outside, I was wired and tired. I was like, not a match, right? And so in that moment, this is a great example. I mean, there's so many examples in fitness that help us with our emotional progress. But I recognize that personal integrity is keeping a promise to yourself. It's making your insides and your outsides match. Emotionally, we're out there emoting, I am confident, I am wonderful. And on the inside, only because you want to be liked, right? The motivation behind that. And behind closed doors, it could be cookie cake ice cream, staying up too late until you can't take it anymore and trying to get up in the morning doing more on less sleep. Like, what are we doing? And then you kind of have to fake it that you're not tired and you're not wired when you go out in the world, right? And that's what happened in fitness for me, because I was standing on the scale. I was like, I haven't eaten in 3 days and I gained 3 pounds, and it's fork, spoon, go. Because I was starving to death, and then my body just got worse and worse and worse because I wasn't actually aligning with who I truly am, which is somebody that loves to run and play. So when I stopped doing that and I threw the scale away, it's like, it's actually not about a number. It's about how I feel about myself. If you do that emotionally, everything changes because you're not performing for others. You're not trying to lose weight so somebody will think you're awesome. You already are awesome. We're just going to uncover what has been put in front as a protective mechanism so your awesomeness can be shown and seen in the world and shared, not shown, shared into the world, right? And in a physical transformation, when you start to do what's natural to you, everything changes. And so I just went out and started running, and running looked like barely jogging because my thighs were rubbing together and I almost started a fire in the 5 o'clock in the morning, like all the friction. It was hard. It wasn't just natural. It wasn't just easy. I had 5 children. I had let myself just go. So starting over, I just put on my favorite music and I just went for it. And I had to stop judging what it looked like, what my progress looked like. And when we do that in the nervous system, stop judging whether you got it right or didn't get it right. It's not about that. It's just about that you did what you needed to do, and the next day you got up and you did what you needed to do, right? And it's actually not even needed to do. It's what you want to do, because whatever you want to do, you'll do.
Yeah,
if you have resistance, you're not going to do it, right? So I was just like starting to take care of myself, and I wasn't worried about if it was on the scale and showing me my worth and could I fit in the skinny jeans. It wasn't about that anymore. It was like, I'm just going to live a healthy life because I've got 5 sets of eyes looking at me, and I want them to know what it feels like and looks like to take care of yourself. So 6 months later, my body just started dropping dress sizes, because it's so funny how this is just exactly like your nervous system. It took me 3 months to tell my metabolism, please burn fat while I sleep, right? Because the whole time my body's like, I don't know, is she serious? Is she really mean she's going to take care of us? About month 3, my body's like, so you're going to keep doing this? Like, you're serious now? Like, you're actually seeing us and you want to take care of us. You're going to be consistent. And so for the next 3 months, my body was like, well, okay, then we'll reach into the fat stores and we'll start to burn fat. And my body was just doing what it already knew how to do without the resistance my brain had been putting on the whole process. And then And it just took another 6 months for my body to just go, whew. So it's usually like an emotional transformation.
Oh yeah.
Nothing less than a year, because there's so much that your body is shifting through that it has to just go, this feels so much better. But that takes time, and it takes consistency, and
That's
it
right.
takes love.
That's absolutely right. And you know, whether it's weight loss, whether it is setting boundaries or resolving an old pattern, I think something that you've named is that the key is trust between you and you. It's like this communication between your soul, your brain, your heart, and your cells.
Yeah.
And it's your body learning to trust. It's your emotions. It's your little me learning to trust that you're there to care for it.
Yeah.
And when you show up with consistency again and again, it can exhale and surrender its will to you.
Yeah.
The adult, the one who can offer it love and then nurturing that it needs, that maybe it's never even received before.
Right. And time plus experience equals trust.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're building trust with yourself, it's going to take time.
Yeah.
And your body needs to experience what it's like to actually be considered in the equation of what you're running and doing every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're just go, 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 please, 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 work hard, earn love, all the things that you're out there doing that are exhausting.
Yeah.
And when you start to do the opposite of that, that you are loved, so there's nothing to be earned. That's a huge shift,
Mm-hmm.
but it takes experience after experience after experience interacting with unhealthy people that you're having to set boundaries around, right? You don't have to set boundaries around healthy people. It's only the unhealthy people, the unboundaried, that you have to set new boundaries around. And I have found that boundaries are not just standing up for yourself. Boundaries are a support system for your nervous system that lays the foundation for all the yeses you are yet to say.
Can you give me some examples of that? I love that.
The yeses, when I say yeses, it's because oftentimes we say yes to things that are actually a no in our body. The yeses are the things that are here for us, that take us to another place. Setting boundaries around people that show you disrespect, or let's say I am going to take a trip and they're like, you can't. We have a family event. What will that look like? Other people will be disappointed. How can you do that to us? And you're like, I understand that you would like me to be at the event, but I'm feeling called to go on this trip, and this is important to me. And they will probably have a meltdown over that because they're not attuned to your personal preferences. They have always needed you to do what they need you to do so they can be happy. Mm-hmm. And you've always given that up until now, right? And you're like, I'm saying yes to something my heart's calling me to go do. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying no to the people that are trying to manipulate and control so that their fears are quelled. Right. And so as we get through this and we start building, with time and experiences, we build trust in ourselves, that I said I was going to take my little self to a trip and go decompress. And it's just me and me. We're just going to go together. We're a team. Right. And you stay in that wholeness of who you are. So you're not fragmented. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Like all the parts of you can be fragmented and it feels like emotional chaos. But the whole point of regulating your nervous system, setting boundaries, and giving yourself a pathway to be empowered is the wholeness of you and you. Taking all those little parts of you, little you goes with you wherever you decide you're going together, right? Mm-hmm. And she goes off to take her trip anyway, even though she has a lot of pressure from people that are not respecting her needs and her wishes, right? And we become this person that is just okay, still safe, even if they're having a meltdown, because unhealthy people will have a meltdown. They do not understand. They're not trying to understand your point of view, right? And so we try to over-explain, we overshare, and then we also learn that over-explaining and oversharing are a trauma response, trying to get agreement with people that are not trying to agree with you. And so then we pull back. We're safe. We are all is well. We keep reminding ourselves they don't have to agree with you. It's okay. Right. And then you just start living your life, and the time that you spend with yourself and the experiences you have, realizing that when you come back from the thing you wanted to do, you haven't actually been abandoned or rejected like you were afraid was going to happen. And you start to realize that the people that are here to stay because they love you, they will learn to adapt to your your new way of being, and the people that are not for you will excuse themselves from your life. And sometimes that's painful. We don't like to see that happen necessarily, but it also just brings you peace of mind because you're not having to put all your energy into getting other people to finally see you, because they don't have the ability. So we're not trying to vilify them either, but we have to accept they don't have the ability to hear you, see you, or know how much you matter. And those are the three things we're asking as children, as we're being parented. We want our parents to develop that in us with the nurturing they're offering us. Can you see me? Can you hear me? And do I matter? And if we didn't get that in childhood, we look to unhealthy people to do that for us, and they can't. They don't have the capacity because they're not seen, they're not heard, they don't know that how much they matter. So then we're like playing this game, and it really works against us instead of working for us. So hopefully, did I answer your question?
Oh, yeah. No, that was such a wonderful example. I always, as I was going through my healing journey, boundaries were a critical component of that. And I didn't even have the awareness, like in my 20s, for example, how much I was saying yes when my whole body was screaming no. And that awareness slapped me upside the head when it finally did hit me, realizing that I was betraying me, realizing that it was my job to have those conversations and stand up for myself in that way. And I had to ask myself and really get comfortable with asking not just myself, but my body, is my motive inspiration? Like I fully feel inspired, mind, body, spirit to say yes, or is my motive obligation? Because if my motive is obligation, then what I realized is ultimately I will resent that person because I am self-abandoning in order to placate them.
Yeah.
And so it's not serving the relationship if that yes is coming from a place of duty or obligation to that person.
Sure.
And so I got in the habit in my 20s of telling people when I felt that urge to be like, oh, of course I can help, or of course I'll be there, or whatever. You know what? Let me check my schedule and get back to you on that, so that I could take a moment and realize my nervous system's dysregulated, that my first impulse is to avoid guilt, and that I was just going to say yes to soothe the feeling of guilt that might come with being true to myself.
Yeah.
And take a moment to pray, to regulate my nervous system, to talk to God and say, okay, higher self, okay, Kristy, what do you really want to do here?
Yeah.
And you know what's wild, Teresa, is I find when you're recovering from this stuff, you don't even know what you want. It is so muddy and unclear.
Yes.
You don't even know what you want because you're like,
have needs?
well, I want to make them happy, and I want to meet everybody's needs, and I want to be lovable, and I want approval. And so sometimes that voice wins. And it took me falling down time and time again and standing up and dusting my knees off and saying, like, that never does work out when you betray yourself, when you self-abandon. And it really took a lot of trial and error in my life to really understand what a clear motive of obligation versus inspiration felt like in my body. And like you said, developing that safety in my body so that I could have the distress tolerance built up, so that when I did say no or did the thing that betrayed my family's core values, that I had the distress tolerance to deal with the backlash that would come emotionally from an emotionally immature person in my life who I was then disappointing or letting down.
Right. Yeah. The unspoken rule of codependency is I will change so you can be happy, or I will care more about your problems than you do.
That's right. Absolutely.
Right. And then we find ourselves giving away our time, our energy, our talents, everything basically, because to our nervous system, it's safer to avoid the conflict,
right,
than it is to prevent the conflict down the road.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I know so many people listening today are like, that's me. That's exactly what I'm working on right now, And if that is you, if you are listening and that is you and you're like, oh my gosh, this is the exact thing I need to be working on. Teresa, how can they find you, to work with you so you can kind of hold their hand so that when that ping of guilt comes up, when the disintegration happens, before they can really step into their power, like they have that support?
Yeah, my programs and my contact are on my website, www.teresa, Teresa, Ford as in Chevy, .com or .life. It's .life. So Teresa Ford .life.
Send me. I will link that in the show notes today too,
Great.
just so for anybody out there who's like, yes, I could use something like that, and they can just quickly click on it and find you. And you even have some webinars coming up, right? So if people are
Yeah.
just like, I'd like just maybe to get a sneak peek of what this could look like or how I could potentially grow. I know you've got some things like that coming up.
Yeah, the first part of October, I have it's a 2-day webinar, and it's Boundaries for Life. It's the empowered woman's journey. We talk about the cost of being nice, and then we talk about the freedom of a well-boundaried life. So, and I'm the give you the answers to the test girl. These webinars are just packed with information. So, kind of like this podcast episode together, I'm trying to give you as much information as possible. But because this is extensive work, then you're going to want to continue on into it and join me in some of my courses. So those are available right after the webinar, and it's a 2-part 6-week series each that talks about the empowered woman's journey into finding your inner strength, truth, and freedom, and then diving into the wholeness of you, the legacy you prefer to leave, and the liberation of living a completely sovereign life.
This is delicious.
I'm excited.
And you know what? I love that you're like, I give you the answers to the test, because here's the deal. You could know this stuff, and like knowing is one level of information. However, embodying it is a very different process, because it calls us to disintegrate the things that weren't working. And what I found is that I have needed support during those times of the disintegration that happens before I can integrate it as wisdom. Because knowledge means I intellectually know, but wisdom means that I'm walking that journey, and my cells understand that I am now safe and sovereign, which was very different than the part of me who knew but couldn't actually walk that walk. And so I've noticed with my clients, it takes hand holding. Like, it takes time to be like, just almost value checking. Like, ooh, I want to do this. I want to tell this person how I really feel. But like, sometimes it's like when we're just starting out, we need permission, or we need to just check our intuition and make sure, is what I'm feeling actually accurate? Because we've been so ingrained to harbor self-doubt in our systems. And so I find when you're going through this, just to have that accountability and that fact checking for somebody who's a recovering, codependent, it's so critical. So critical.
Agreed. And doing this work, you have eyes watching you. Like, your circle of influence is kind of counting on you to use your gifts and your intuition, your knowingness, that you are here to be a pattern breaker, that you don't want to carry on the family legacy as it has been delivered to you, but rather you want to create a legacy that you prefer to be known by. Like, they call that your dash, between the year you were born and the year you pass on your headstone. What happened in the dash? Who did you become? And it's who you become on the journey that is what your legacy is made of. And so to be that pattern breaker, to become a safe space for your children, that's everything.
That is absolutely. So for everybody who's listening today, all of Teresa's links are going to be in the show notes today. So if you guys are like, if your bodies are screaming, this is exactly what I needed, you guys will know how to find her. So Teresa, thank you so much for sharing your light and your wisdom with us today. I appreciate it so much, sister.
Thank you. This is my favorite time today. It was so fun, and you're just always a pleasure to talk with.
Thank you. All right, guys, we will see you next time on Transcendence Talks. Have a great day.